We just want to get stabbed repeatedly with dick sword. The storm is still jacking off, dumping its endless load on us. Fine, I don't want to fuck you anyways, you big hairy bitch. Raven really came for my neck. Molina. Oh god, what a dumb fucking bitch. We're gendering fire now? Hello, my name is Rachel, and today we're talking about the Plated Prisoner series, books 2, 3, and 4 by Raven Kennedy. Listen, this is so embarrassing because, as we know, I hated book 1. Garbage. Dumpster fire. So I was not supposed to like the rest of this series. It's very clear to me now that Raven Kennedy is a fan of Game of Thrones, and very specifically A Court of Mist and Fury. And the thing is, so am I. So am I. So listen, I binge read all 3 of these books. I ate that shit up. All fucking 3 of them, back to back. I never do that. I never do that. I don't know what to say. I don't know who I am anymore. So this is my review of the 3 sequels all smash together. There will be some spoilers, so if you don't want to watch, I understand, but I hope you will. I'm not spoiling the last book, so maybe stay, yes? Because the last book doesn't come out until next June, and like, embarrassingly, again, I'm disappointed about that because I want to read it now. This is so weird. I'm having an identity crisis. Don't get me wrong though, I do have major complaints. When do I not? But the thing is that Guild on its own should not have been its own book. The way these books are split up plays a huge part in why Guild on its own was so bad. Anyway, let's just get into it. But first, I have to say thank you for being a friend and shout out my Potato Starch Marxist patrons. They are tier 3 on my Patreon. If you want to join, the link is down below. So thank you to Molly, Reba, Allison, Ebby, Carlin, Shannon, Paige, Sean, and Kate. Alright, so remember where we left off in Guild. If you haven't watched that video, it's linked down below. There was a bit of a ruckus. Oren slapped a pirate, turned into a gold statue with his dick out, so that was a time. Fourth Kingdom, who's the enemy, came to her rescue. Turns out their commander, Rip, is actually a super hot guy. Well, oh well, there's the infamous commander, and he rips off his helmet and he's like, surprise, I'm super fine and also I'm Fae. But guess what, bitch? So is Oren, come to find out. First chapter of book 2 was Queen Molina. Oh, where to begin? And she's like, yeah, Midas is gone. I'm finally gonna wield my own crown, you bitches. And I'll be honest, I had high hopes for Molina. Marinara sauce. Those were soon to be crushed. Then in chapter 2 we switched to Oren's POV. I want to call her Lauren so bad. And she's going on and on. And we're recapping, but from the perspective of how every single thing made her feel, and she keeps thinking about Sale, the guard who was randomly thrown in at the last minute of the last book. And we already know how you feel, Oren. We already know, and I'm bored. It's super redundant. I was about to claw my eyes out. And my friends were like, just wait, it gets better. And I didn't believe them. I was rude enough not to trust my friends. I regret that now. She recounts, she does a paragraph about how broken she is. Recounts, does a paragraph about how sad she is, how raw she is, how she feels this, she feels that. I can't take it anymore. The problem is at this point it had 0 emotional connection because book 1 was so bad. And because of the way that Raven Kennedy decided to set the series up, it did not have any emotional connection to Oren or her story. So the beginning of this book felt incredibly shallow to me because the first book felt incredibly shallow. So she's like, ah shit, hot commander guy, and says, I need to be very careful around this male. I need to avoid him at all costs. Bitch, do exactly the opposite of that. And she does. So she's free to move around the camp, right? As long as she doesn't try to run away. So she's like, okay, dope. I'm gonna find their messenger hawks and I'm gonna get a message to Midas. Because Fourth is trying to take her, the other saddles, remember them, and the guards from Sixth Kingdom and sneak up on Midas, who's in Fifth Kingdom, pretending to be sad about their king dying even though he's the one that killed him. So she's sneaking around and she's come upon by a man named Osric. And it was then that I realized this is A Court of Mist and Fury because this man is Cassian. This is very specifically A Court of Mist and Fury, not A Court of Thorns and Roses, not A Court of Wings and Ruin, not A Court of Silver Flames, and definitely fucking not the Christmas one. We don't talk about that. We do not talk about that. Less than 1 star. Negative stars. She owes me payback for that. Horrible. Terrible. Dying inside. The thing is, I like A Court of Mist and Fury. I really like it. Not enough to keep it on my shelf anymore, apparently, but I really liked it. Like, it's a 5-star book from me. I'm a simple bitch. What can I say? The rest of the series is trash, but that book is what I call the sweet spot. So when I say I like A Court of Mist and Fury, here's what I mean. And by the way, the more this book went on, the more ACOMAF it got. And I liked it because it stayed in the sweet spot. Identity crisis. So when I say that I like A Court of Mist and Fury, I mean very specifically that book, as I said. A Court of Thorns and Roses is like a 2. A Court of Mist and Fury, 5. Court of Wings and Ruin, 2.5. The Christmas one, no. Court of Silver Flames, maybe a 3. On banter alone. I hate Rhysand now. I don't talk about late stage Rhysand. I don't talk about that. And I definitely didn't like the plot. Boring as fuck. But ACOMAF, I can't lie to you. And it's not because I'm into Rhysand, especially late stage Rhysand. It's a no from me. I'm into very specific things that happen in that book. I'm always on the lookout for something that does for me what ACOMAF did for me, and now the Plated Prisoner is doing. Good for me, I guess. Okay, so things like a found family that's already established, having a new person, your main character, get introduced to the group and like slowly build bonds with this existing group. I dig that shit. I just dig that shit. I liked it with Matthias, and I like it in ACOMAF. I dig that shit. Forced proximity deconstruction. So taking your main character out of their original environment, forcing them into a new environment that they have been brainwashed into hating, only to find out that their original environment is actually the problem, and grappling with the fallout of, oh shit, everything that I have learned is a lie and completely unreliable. I can't rely on anything I used to rely on. I love that. Evil, do-bad enemy person flirting with me. And why am I kind of into it? Yeah, self-explanatory. This literally always works for me. We're sort of reluctant friends at first because we're enemies because of where we come from, but there's so much yearning. All of this happens. I was not expecting this in Plated Prisoner. Oren ends up meeting Commander Rip's friends, Osric and Lou. Osric is definitely Cassian. Lou is neither Mor nor Amren. She's better than both. I can't really stand Mor, to be honest with you. Judd, who is not really Azriel, but that's fine because Azriel's way overrated anyway. And there's another one which is not Rhysand's brother. I'll talk about him in a second. And when I say like Osric is Cassian, I'm not saying that it's like enough to be plagiarism, obviously. This isn't like a Piper CJ situation. In fact, I'd say Raven Kennedy took like the bare bones of ACOMAF and made a story that does a lot of the things I liked in ACOMAF, but did better because I like the world that Raven Kennedy started building in books 2, 3, and 4. I like the politics better. I like the magic better, way better. I always felt like there was a shallowness also to the way Tamlin gets turned into a villain. I think that Sarah did him pretty dirty, to be honest. Or like at least didn't treat his character with much nuance where there could have been some. Whereas with Oren's story, Midas's emotional manipulation of Oren gets really well explored in book 3, like surprisingly well explored. I was not expecting to highlight portions of this where I'm like, wow, that's deep. Okay. Book 2, we pretty much spent the whole book traveling with 4th Kingdom to 5th Kingdom. So Oren is technically a prisoner, except she's forced to sleep in Commander Ripped Abs' tent, which is forced proximity, which is kind of my shit. So Oren's getting like kind of deprogrammed from the abuse, making friends, meeting not Rhysand's friends, which are called the Wrath, which is like the Court of Dreams but better. There's cute scenes where like Lou in his, friend group is trying to get Oren to help her steal a barrel of wine from another guy in the friend group. Judd, it's like cute little scenes like that. We get a scene where it's like very similar to Farah and Rhysand fighting in the snow. In fact, it actually is in the snow. But Oren's got fucking ribbons, which she uses to help her kick ass, which is so fucking cool. Like, I didn't think that I would like it, but as soon as the ribbons became like a major player, I was like, damn it, Raven Kennedy. Commander Rip basically flirts throughout the entire book with Oren and is like, hello, you're an abuse victim. Why can't you see this? Hello, are you there? And I feel like it pretty accurately depicted how some people treat abuse victims with that frustration of, ooh, let me help you. Why can't you see that you're in this position? But the abuse victim really has to choose that for themselves. And I feel like that's really well explored here. Because having the sense of family gives Oren something to contrast between her experiences with Midas and her experiences with people of fourth. And she realizes, oh shit, I want what they have for myself. Like I thought that I was in a good position being taken care of, but what I really needed was a family. And there's a moment where Lou in book 3 actually tells Oren, all right, you're back with Midas. And she's like, oh, you're mad at me? And Lou is like, I'm not mad. I just didn't expect you to rush back under Midas's thumb. I thought you were better than that. And Oren is like, oh, I lost her respect. And so dealing with that dynamic of like, you want to be nice, but you are losing respect for the person because you're like, why would you choose that? Which is a topic that really deserves like a lot of care when you're writing about it. And I think that Raven Kennedy did a pretty good job. At the end of book 2, Fourth Kingdom makes a deal and trades Oren back to Midas and Commander Rip before she goes like, look, I'm going to ask you this one time. Do you want to stay? And she's like, I would like to, but can't. Would like to, but can't. And he kissed her, and then he leaves in a huff. And then King Rot, his king, shows up, who literally like rots things, and he like rots the ground outside of Fifth Kingdom when he shows up. So Oren goes back to Midas, and he's like, oh, what's up? Thank goodness you're here. Get back in your cage. And she's like, ooh, wow, actually super not interested in going in a cage anymore. I feel like I'm good now. Feel like I feel safe on my own. I know you've been my protector, abuser. I just don't feel like doing that anymore. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to go in the cage though. She's like, ooh, super not. He's like, yeah. She says no. And he puts her in the cage. So she's like banging on the walls, and then she starts turning shit to gold because it turns out that this entire time, Oren has been the one with the gold magic, not Midas. And I don't feel like that really needed to be withheld from us. Don't really think that that served any purpose. Withholding that until the end of book 2, I feel like it would have been a fine reveal to have that in book 1 at some point. But okay. Anyway, didn't love that, but it's fine. And who should show up to save her as she's banging to be let out and turning shit to gold and really upset? King Rot. And he's like, what's up, you? Except it's not just King Rot, because he's like, by the way, I'm also Commander Rip. He's like, surprise, I've been the commander and the king this whole time. Gasp, shock. Yeah, I knew that. It was kind of obvious. He's like, you can call me Slade, like Slade Wilson. And him being the king was something that I had guessed because it's like Sarah J. Maas' school of fantasy romance writing 101. You never make the most powerful sexy man in the world not the love interest. If he's the most powerful and he has abs, then he is the love interest. I don't make the rules. Sarah does. Raven just has to follow them. How would we know that he's the most masculine, manly man love interest if he is not the most powerful person in the world that we're inside of? Speaking of masculinity, that's something I want to talk about. So something that happens both in Sarah's entirety of her books and in this series is weird stuff on masculinity that I don't love. So there's things said like, there's an ethereal masculinity that doesn't quite fit in this world, describing Rip. What is an ethereal masculinity? Is that like shimmery abs? Is that what Edward Cullen has? My pulse jumps at the ferocious protectiveness streaming from his words like the warning growl of an alpha wolf. Did you know that alpha wolves are a myth? Calling Rip a predator, so interesting. At one point in book 3, even a fireplace is described as masculine. A fireplace. We're gendering fire now? I don't know, just weird. It's just weird. I don't like it. Speaking of things I don't love, Molina. Oh god, what a dumb fucking bitch. I think Oren's portrayal of her understanding and coming to terms with her abuse is great. Meanwhile, Molina was not really given that opportunity, and that's a shame because in many ways Molina was also abused by Midas. Certainly not to the degree that Oren was. She literally lived in a cage, but definitely still abuse. Book 2, Molina is like, yeah, fuck yeah, Midas is gone. I've watched him this whole time. I know how to scheme now because I've been watching him and I'm gonna get my kingdom back. And she like starts out scheming, I'm gonna rule the 6th kingdom on my own. This was my kingdom anyways before Midas came up here and married me and took it for himself. I'm taking my shit back, and this bitch is stupider than a box of rocks. In fact, a box of rocks might be more intelligent. All this time watching Midas, and she apparently has not one fucking plan, not a single brain cell to cut in half and rub together to make a plan with. No thoughts head empty because all her plans go to shit. Her people hate her. Midas gets somebody pregnant and is like, hey, I got one of my saddles pregnant, so why don't you pretend to be the mom? And she's like, no. I would have said yes. And you want to know why? Because I would have been like, I'm gonna raise this child to fucking hate you, Midas. That would have been her better plan. But no, Molina's like, I don't understand. Plans? Who is that? Don't know her. This random guy shows up and says, hey, you can have your heart's desire if you go to 7th Kingdom. And she's like, ugh, gross, sounds nasty, don't want it. And then book 3, people will come and start storming her castle. Midas sends a shadow guy after her to kill her. Instead, he kills her boyfriend, saddle person named Geo. So she goes to Seventh Kingdom with random guy who's like, you could have your heart's desire. And there's a piece of shit castle in ruins. And she shows up, and these 2 twin guys who are weird as hell are like, Molina, girl, so glad you're here. Oh, thank goodness. Gonna need some of your blood. And she's like, why is this castle so shabby? And they're like, it's not, look. And suddenly the castle's nice. She doesn't think anything of this because she's stupid as fuck. So they're like, gonna need your blood. And she's like, okay. The shadow guy who killed her saddle boyfriend shows back up and is like, hey, this isn't what it seems and you should probably run. And she's like, I don't think I should listen to you. You don't think you should listen to him, but you'll listen to all these other dudes that are creepy as fuck? Okay, not a single ounce of discernment in your body, my love. Then they use her bridge. What? They use her blood. Ha! To mend the bridge between the human world and the Fae world. And she hears the Fae marching over to the human world. They had to use her blood because she's a pure royal of Aurea. I don't know why that's magical, but regardless. And that's it. That is the totality of Molina's story. Dumb bitchery for 4 books. Why? She never makes a plan, never takes time to reflect, nothing. And for this, I'm annoyed because I wish Raven Kennedy had utilized her better. Don't get me wrong, I like the bridge to fairyland being mended because I want the stakes, I do. But I wanted to see even a smidgen of growth from Molina, and now we're down to 1 book left, and I don't see that happening. Because she too was Midas's abuse victim, and I would have liked to see her come into her own the same way Oren was able to. Speaking of Midas's abuse, let's focus in on that for a second. I really feel like similar to Molina, Midas himself didn't really get utilized as well as I'd like, especially in book 1, but I appreciate Oren's on-page thought processes, working through and gaining a better understanding of her psychological abuse. Here's some excerpts that I thought were pretty exceptional and like showed great understanding of the psychological abuse. It says, I learned him, Midas, as one learns a language. It was necessary because of his temper, because I never wanted to get on his bad side or set him off. It's because of my sensitivity to his emotions, because of my many years of studying him, that I know the way his mind works. Was he always this way, or like a frog put into lukewarm water? Did I just not notice the slow progression of the rising temperature of his greed until I was being boiled in it? There's a point where Midas actually cuts off Oren's ribbons, and he said, this hurts me a lot more than it hurts you, which is peak abuser. She says, it's muscle memory or maybe mind memory. Something that makes me almost revert to old behaviors. The urge to placate him, to please, is strong. Even when he's hurting her, she has to remind herself, don't go back to those old tendencies that you used before you realize that this was abuse. I was really impressed by this, especially in comparison to like A Court of Mist and Fury, which I feel like in general, Sarah J. Maas fails to write trauma well. Like Rhysand's sexual trauma, for instance, I feel is shallow in its portrayal. And every woman, every single fucking woman who goes through trauma in a Sarah J. Maas book is immediately like, I couldn't possibly eat. God forbid we see binge eating as a coping mechanism. And the inner monologue I feel is like really shallow in her books in general. Not to mention Rhysand later becoming anti-choice. So thanks for that, Sarah. This is why I wish I never left the sweet spot. So to summarize book 3, real quick, outside of the well done exploration of Oren coming to terms with her abuse, Oren is like, I really want to fucking leave. I don't want to be with Midas anymore. I'm out. I can see I'm abused now, and I'm done. But Midas is like, yeah, remember that guard Digby who you left with and then you lost him? I have him, and I suggest you obey me or I'm gonna hurt him. So Oren is juggling trying to find and free Digby, making plans to leave with Rissa, the other saddle who was traumatically raped at the end of book 1, and trying to be nice to Midas so he doesn't fuck everybody over, while also balancing blossoming feelings for Commander Rip / King Slade. King Ravager, Rot Daddy. It's just like non-stop fucking flirting with Slade Wilson, which is great. The yearning. The is he a little evil? Maybe. It's a delight. It ramps up over the course of the book until Oren's like, you know what? Let me just see if he's into me, because I'm like, I really can't get over how into him I am. So she goes to his room and is like, listen, I want to be with you though. Like, are you feeling this? And he's like, listen, I've been waiting. Also, I think we should bone. But they can't because Oren has gold touch power that she typically wears gloves over her hands for. and if she touches anybody before the sun sets, she'll turn them to gold. And listen, I can't understate how much I love yearning. It's great. The build-up is always the best. Shit works for me. So this man sits in a chair and was like, I will wait right here until the sun goes down, and then we will bone. And you know what? Good for Raven Kennedy. Good for you, Raven. Good job on that part. However, the word pussy is used nonstop, and we all know how I feel about that word. No, could do without that. Other than that, I think the sex scenes were actually not bad, which for me is a compliment. I will say there is a lot of like similar SJM jargon here. So things like sheathed, because dicks are always swords, slammed to the hilt, again, a dick is a sword. The man constantly purring things like a cat. Oh, it's my best purr, you're welcome. But at least there's variety outside of that. And she actually used the word clit instead of apex of her thighs or bundle of nerves. Thank you, finally. Finally. I will say there's a huge focus on like, this is so weird to talk about. There's a huge focus on the clit in this series in general. And using that to achieve orgasm, which is great because I feel like, especially in SJM books, there's this focus on penetrative sex as if that is the way that most women achieve orgasm. They don't. 80% of women cannot orgasm through penetrative sex. So why do we not focus on the clit more often? We should talk about that. Maybe I'm not the person to lead the conversation though, since I'm about to start giggling like a 13-year-old. So go Raven Kennedy for that. I really appreciate the focus on the clitoris. Good for you. Sometimes though she did just straight up channel SJM, because there was part where you get not Rhysand's point of view, and he's like, he says that Oren is like spread out in front of me like a feast, and I'm like, okay Rhys, I see you. Maybe Raven Kennedy is just secretly Sarah. Ha! Anyways, so Midas has been making plans. He uses Digby to manipulate Oren, and when he finds out she's been repeatedly disobeying him, sneaking out of her room, going to meet, not Rip Slade, that guy. He has her held against a wall, cuts off her ribbons, which she's been learning to use as like a form of strength. That was really heartbreaking. Like I actually felt that. I was shocking. I was not expecting him to cut those things off. It was awful. And then he tells her that her entire backstory is a lie. And another shock is that Oren's backstory is that she ran away from being forced into sex work when she was like 15. And she was about to be taken by this even like worse pimp, essentially. I can't remember what the guy's name was. He never comes on page. So she runs away to get away from that possibility, and that's when Midas finds her. Well, then in book 3, he reveals that he was actually that guy all along, and he found her, realized she had gold touch powers, and was like, this is a better way to make money. Pretended to save her, and then used her power to make himself money. I was fucking shocked that he was the same guy. I was like, no, that's awful. That is so fucked up. Raven really came for my neck. He tells everybody that his wife is dead, and then he gets engaged to Queen Kayla. His wife is not dead, by the way. Molina is off doing fuck shit elsewhere. Queen Molina of Third Kingdom shows up. She has like whisper power. She's fucking ruthless. She's like, I just want power, and I will fuck over any bitch to get it. And so Midas, remember in the book 1, he killed King Frank. I call him Frank. He killed King Frank. Well, at the end of book 3, he poisons, Joffrey Baratheon style, King Frank's son, and then blames it on Slade Wilson, and then Oren runs out and is like, nah, he didn't do that and you're not gonna touch him. That's my boyfriend. And so Midas holds a knife to her throat. She can't defend herself because he drugged her, he took away her ribbons. And so Oren fucking snaps. She literally goes from Jean Grey to Phoenix. No shit. Like, that is exactly what happens. She fucking kills everybody, saves Midas for last, kisses him on the cheek, and then gold touches him, turns him to gold. Then her power almost kills her because she's never used it to that degree anymore, Phoenix, and Slade rots her so she doesn't die. They fly to Fourth Kingdom. He brings her back from the brink of death, and she has a little bit of his power still in her, like she's pregnant with rot, not like pregnant. You get it. So Rissa, the saddle who she was supposed to run away with, and another saddle named Polly are like, oh, we're getting the fuck out of here. And they tag along with Fourth Kingdom's army, who's going back to Fourth Kingdom. More on that in a sec. So Queen Kayla, Midas's would-be new wife, is still alive. ran out of there before Orin could drown her in gold, and is like, damn, this looks like a job for me. And her ass takes out King Frank's next of kin, puts some like sock puppet stupid inheritor in charge of Fifth Kingdom so she can essentially be in charge of Fifth Kingdom, and then goes to Sixth Kingdom and is like, I'm fucking crafty, I want this kingdom too. And I just want to know, where was this level of craftiness for Molina? Hello? Why did Molina have to be such a dumb bitch? Like, we could have had some level of scheming and we got none. Especially if it was like an issue of her not being able to balance, Raven not being able to balance like multiple scheming characters. Like getting rid of Midas, I don't know, it should have left an opening for Molina. I don't know, it was fucking ridiculous. Alright, so book 4. I already said what happens to Molina, so we'll just move on. She's separate from everybody else, so it doesn't matter. We open and Queen Kayla is, you know what, I think that Orin stole the Gold Touch power from Midas. Couldn't possibly have been Orin's all along. No, I think she stole it. And what if she stole my magic? What if she'll come for me next? And so she starts spreading rumors that Orin is a 2-timing magic stealing slut, and starts politicking, as she does, along with her brother. We then switch to Slade's POV when he's a child. He's living in Fairyland with his mom and his dad and his little brother, whose name is Riot. Anyway, turns out Slade's dad, Slade Wilson Sr. Wade Wilson? No. Anyways, his dad is called the Breaker, and his dad and the King of Fairyland are the ones who severed the bridge between Oria and Anwin, the Fairyland. And Slade is really protective of his mother and his little brother from his dad, who's abusive. And there are things said in these chapters where I feel like Raven Kennedy is going through a point where she writing this, where she's like, maybe the way that we are writing is perpetuating toxic masculinity. Because she says things in Slade's POV, like about his dad, I'm always supposed to be something called stoic, which I think that means not to feel, and says, I'm weak, my magic only comes out when I'm feeling emotions, and father says that's wrong. So that's pretty on the nose, because when we talk about toxic masculinity, we talk about how it prioritizes things like aggression, dominance, and stoicism, and does not prioritize emotional intelligence. So I think she's starting to not want to adhere to that whole alpha male bullshit, which is good. We don't need any Andrew Tates in the world. We already have one, and that's 10 too many. This book again did something I love, that started in A Court of Mist and Fury, taking a page out of A Court of Mist and Fury, pun intended, where we have not Cassian, Osric, having an instantaneous attraction and almost vitriolic level of attraction with another woman, in this case Rissa, the former Saddle. They think each other is kind of the worst, but they also really want to fuck. They want to hate fuck each other so bad, and it's so much like Cassian and Nesta. All I could do was laugh. All I could do was laugh. Like, she makes fun of him for being like a big hairy guy who's like stupid, and he's like, yeah, well, you're dainty and won't last a day in the army, so fuck you. There's no one for you to impress here. And she's like, why would I want to impress anybody? Who am I gonna impress? You? But also, would you like to fuck? They do not, in fact, fuck in this book, much like Nesta and Cassian don't initially. He tells her, I'm paraphrasing, he's like, I don't think you actually want to fuck, I think you will end up regretting it, so let me know when you feel more sure, and then we'll bang it out. She's like, fine, I don't want to fuck you anyways, you big hairy bitch. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but I think I'm doing a damn good job. Side note, there's also a line where not Cassian, Osric says, the storm is still jacking off, dumping its endless load on us. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. I mean, yeah, only a man would look at a rainstorm and think of a penis. Anyways, Orin is in a coma-ish, kind of. Because Rip Slade Raw Daddy rotted her and then brought her back, and she starts spewing out in this coma gold from like all of her pores, and so then he like takes her to a cave, and the Phoenix, not Jean Grey, the Phoenix version of Orin wakes up and is like, I want to fucking fight! So very much in the way of Logan Wolverine, he starts fighting her. She comes back to her Jean Grey mode, normal Orin, and is like, hey, I want to fuck. Immediately. Like, there's no space in between. It is, I am Phoenix, I am Jean Grey, and I want to fuck. Like there's no build up because she feels really guilty about having murdered a bunch of people in her gold phoenix form. So they're fucking, she's like, I need to be punished, and he's like, nah. Also, the SJM jumps out again because he says, I thrust into her sinking all the way to the hilt. Again, a dick is a sword. We all want to impale ourselves, apparently. We just want to get stabbed repeatedly with dick swords. At least the phrase velvet wrapped steel is never used, so thank God. Another little wording complaint I have real quick. The word clout is used, and again, I feel like that's really anachronistic for a fantasy, and I'm begging authors to stop. Actually, one more. Not Rhysand, Slade, says, the choice is yours more than once towards the end of the book. And I'm like, okay, we get it. You're a pro-choice king. Congratulations, I suppose. Except Rhysand is literally not a pro-choice king, because when it came to telling Farah medical information about her fucking pregnancy, he was like, nobody say anything. Rhysand is the new Tamlin. I will not be taking questions. Honestly, I'm just tired of like women having to be told it's your choice by men. Like, I don't need a man to give me agency. I just want to be like, you know what? I have agency. Shh. Thanks, Chad. I told myself I don't need you to tell me. Thank you. I do have agency. It is my choice. Agency is just inherently ours, and we should be the ones to see that ourselves and say, you know what, it is my choice, it's my time to shine. So first we are in the city of Deadfall, which is a secret city. In that way it is sort of like Valaris. Not exactly like Valaris, but in the like whole secret city way, it's like Valaris. That Slade, as the ruler, keeps secret from the entirety of the world, so a lot like Valaris in that way. But it differs from Valaris in many ways that I really liked and are very unique. So the reason he's called Rip is the same reason why he hides the city, actually. So in Fairyland, his dad was going to hurt his mom and his little brother, Riot. God, that name's ridiculous. So Rip goes toe-to-toe with his dad, and they're duking it out. I think his dad dies. I don't remember. But he rips a hole in the world, and him, his brother, his mom, and everybody in their vicinity gets sucked into this hole, except his dad. So there's a hole between Oria, and Anwin, the fairyland. So Slade ripped a hole in space and time, but sort of also ripped himself in half, is what he says. So he's like Slade, but also Rip. So he's two people. So that's why he can slip between two versions of himself, and I think that was really cool, because the rip is like it was so like cataclysmic that it tore him into, it caused like all these people to be in this place where they weren't originally. It has a lot of like magical effects. It's just really cool and really creative and unique, and I really appreciate Raven for creating that. In the end, Orin gets stolen by Queen Kayla. Remember her? Queen Kayla's brother. After Slade and Orin decide to say no to going to basically what would have been Orin's trial for killing Midas, since everyone thinks that she's again a two-timing power-stealing slut. So she gets kidnapped. Rissa, her friend, the former saddle, gets stabbed. So not Osric is like, or not Cassian, Osric is like, no! And Orin gets taken to Second Kingdom, where she literally gets taken on this like Cersei Lannister walk of shame by this extremely pious religious nut to her trial. And Queen Kayla manipulates the trial. She's found guilty, and right as they're about to stab her with multiple blades to kill her, who should show up? Slade. He finally gets there, and he shows up and just like rots a bunch of people, and he's trying to get to her, but there's a magical barrier, and so unfortunately the only way for him to save her is to thrust raw magic, whatever that is, towards her and create another rip in the world, and she climbs through it and falls into Fairyland, and then it closes, and now they're separated, which, good. Listen, as I said, I like yearning. If they had been together, I would have been disappointed. Drive them apart. Separate them. In fact, don't even give them a happy ending. Stay in the sweet spot. I appreciate the politicking being done here. I really appreciate the unique magic. Like, I've never seen like gold touch magic and whisper magic, and it's just really freaking cool, interesting stuff that Raven Kennedy is doing. So now we not only have the Orient royals to deal with, but we also have the Fae coming over from Anwin because dumbass Molina fixed the bridge. So the stakes are high, and we're separated, so we stayed in the sweet spot. I love it. I'm pretty happy with this series, actually. I think that it's very particular to my taste, though, so if you don't like A Court of Mist and Fury, very particularly that book, you will not like this series. There are some like pretty stupid moments, but I don't know, I consider this kind of like, I really like certain rom-coms like No Strings Attached. It's not like it's really substantive, like it's not like a really substantive movie, but I love it. So I consider it kind of like that. It's one of those like very non-substantial, fluffy things that you love. So that's it. Yeah, Identity Crisis. It's very weird to say that I like this series, but I do. I like it. I like it a lot. So when the final book comes out, I will be reading it. And I hope that they continue to stay in the sweet spot, and that we don't get like, I don't want, if it ends in a pregnancy, 0 stars. I swear to God, I will 0 star this. I will retroactively take back all of my good ratings for the last 3 books. Don't end this in pregnancy, or I swear to God, I will riot. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave your comments and questions down below. Let me know if you have lost all respect for me for liking this series. Patreon's down below, social media's down below, and any questions or comments, leave them below. Okay, like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye!